Remote Evil. Book 1. Chapter 5. Elimination. This audiovisual book was created by Joseph Russell Tim Pugison. Dan and Cherry officially became a couple. She even changed her Facebook status to proudly announce that she is in a relationship now. She started posting pictures of her and Dan enjoying themselves, sometimes together with some friends. They continued enjoying having sex the way Dan liked it. Norman continued stalking them. He still watches while they have sex. But he never masturbates anymore. The thought of Cherry enjoying different sex positions with Dan which are not considered normal by Norman has killed the appetite of Norman towards masturbation. The more he knows that the couple are enjoying themselves, especially when they have sex, the more his resolve to kill Dan and punish Cherry grows. It has grown to a point that for the first time in his life Norman actually touched a gun. He modified guns to fit in his drones. He modified his drone so it can shoot the gun using remote control. He further modified his drone to compensate for the recoil once it has fired the gun. It even has a laser sight. By now he has done a lot of research on crime and how to execute them discreetly and without being known. He also perfected his shooting skills by practicing on remote forests. He also perfected the shooting capabilities of his drones. He did much more preparations for a possible life of crime. He continued stalking Cherry but never lets it interrupt his work in the company. He is now like a machine. He efficiently does his work in the office with no one able to tell that he has changed personally inside. His dreams of becoming a very rich techie has been replaced by his burning desire to stop Dan from having sex with Cherry. He even carries a gun now whenever he stalks Cherry. He cannot recall how many times he has nearly shot the monitors inside the van whenever Cherry and Dan does a new sex position. Somehow he is still able to keep his anger in check, but barely. He is even becoming used to Cherry and Dan having sex. He now just watches them coldly. Stalking them has become a routine for him. He just watches as they progress as a couple. He researched the life of Dan as thoroughly as he can. He found out that Dan is a highly decorated soldier who does charity work with mentally ill kids. Dan has even convinced Cherry to do charity work for the same mentally ill kids as well. He now thinks of leaving them alone. He feels ashamed for stalking them and planning evil thoughts on them. He already has plans to stop stalking the couple. It's just that he just cannot stop stalking them. They are his only social life, and without them to stalk he does not know what else to do. But he has mellowed. Stalking them is just a routine to him now. But he is not angry with the couple anymore. He still feels angry with Dan every time he takes Cherry from behind against the wall. He just feels he deserved to do this to Cherry and not Dan. But tonight things are about to change again for Norman one more time. It began just like any other ordinary stalking day for Norman. As usual, Cherry and Dan were kissing and cuddling before going up the bedroom to have sex. By now Norman is already used to it. He is already preparing to see them in his monitor having sex in the bedroom. He stopped recording the videos of the silhouettes of Cherry when he first saw her having sex with Dan. Sometimes he watches them while eating in his van. They are like entertainment to him already. But tonight is different. He monitors that Cherry and Dan seems to be having sex in the living room and not bothering to get undressed. His monitoring technology cannot tell if they are naked or clothed, but their silhouettes are better if they are naked. By now he is used to their silhouettes. He assumes they are not naked, but this is just his guess. But what follows he is really sure about. He knows that Cherry went down on Dan and did what every man dreams a woman would do to him. Norman broke his silence and shouted and cursed at the top of his lungs inside the van. He started banging on everything he can land his fists on. He never minded if he would be found out. He repeatedly shouted slut over and over again at the top of his lungs. He stopped viewing the couple. He took out his gun and shot several rounds in the air. The roof of his van was peppered with holes. Luckily he has a silencer on his gun and it did not make much noise. Otherwise he could have been found out by people passing by his location. He continued to watch the couple. Now the couple was having sex on the sofa. Half crazed by now, Norman is just fixated on seeing Dan stop having sex with Cherry. Norman, however, will not be given an early reprieve from his suffering. He watched as Dan and Cherry did extreme sex positions on the sofa that only couples in porn movies do. Norman knows. Norman has watched thousands of porn movies even while he was young. The suffering of Norman, however, soon ended. Cherry and Dan finished having sex and rested. Cherry and Dan separated. He sees the silhouette of Dan putting on his pants. Norman is not thinking anymore. He just wants to kill Dan. Cherry is now so used to Dan that she never escorts him out of the house. She just kisses him and locks the door when he leaves. She never even checks if Dan has left her driveway. As usual, Dan gets on his car and prepares to get off the driveway of Cherry. A hail of bullets pierced the driver's side of the car. The bullets penetrated the door of the car. The bullets also smashed the glass windows of the door. Cherry felt terror on the strange sounds she heard. She peered out the window and saw that the car of Dan has not left her driveway. After a more clearer look, she also saw that the glass windows of the car of Dan were smashed. Against her better judgment, she went out to check Dan. She saw him bloodied and full of bullet wounds, especially in the head. He was almost unrecognizable. She went inside screaming hysterically in terror, but still managed to call the police after a while. But the police were too late when they arrived. They immediately checked the medical condition of Dan when they arrived. Dan was already dead a long time ago, even before the police arrived. The police assumed that he died instantly, especially from the bullets that hit his head. The crying Cherry is now alone again. End of chapter.